It takes a truly inspired idea to create your success. You know what? The perspiration stuff happens on its own if you have an inspired, if you have a solid enough vision of your success. It was after dark, and I stepped out onto this windy, cold, freezing deck of the ferry, and I looked down at this just dark, turbulent ocean below, and it was a nightmare down there. And I looked down and I thought, what the hell am I doing here? Do I really want to cross an entire ocean in a boat the size of a phone booth? The goal was to head directly west from Tofino, as far out into the open Pacific as I could go, and then turn around and head back in. After the first hour, we were into 5-foot seas. And I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable. After the second hour, we were into 10-foot seas, and I was throwing my guts up. Yeah, by the fourth hour, I was 20 kilometers out into the open Pacific. I was into 15-foot waves. Imagine that. Do you know what a 15-foot wave looks like? These advancing mountains of water, tall. You know, they say that when you get seasick, at first you're afraid you're going to die, and then you're afraid you're not going to die. I reached my furthest distance of 20 kilometers out into the Pacific Ocean, and as if on cue, there was a pod of feeding humpback whales there, an absolutely inspiring sight. But you know, I had other concerns at the time. We turned around at the whales, and it took me 5 grueling hours to make it back to the safety of the marina in Tofino, where I proceeded to pass out in my hotel room. You know, although I didn't necessarily like what I learned after the Tofino sea trials, I came away from that experience feeling much better about what I had set out to do, and certainly much better than how I felt about it 3 days earlier on the ferry, or how horrible I imagined it could be before I had gained any real experience at all. When you're bold, it means you're going to be venturing into new, personally unexplored territories, and dealing with fear is going to be part of that process. Don't let your fears rule your life. Be bold, and just do it. One step at a time and one bite at a time. After each bite, you're going to learn more about what it takes to. Most distance traveled by human power in one day, exactly 24 hours. The existing record was set by a German professional cyclist in 1995 of 1,021 kilometers. That's the distance between here and California by bicycle in one day. So most people will never drive their cars that far in one day, and I had to pedal my bullet bicycle at least that far to break the current world record. On fire. Since I can't get out of my capsule, I have to pee into a tube fixed to me by catheter. So I'm drinking liquid food and water out of another tube and praying that my pit crew hasn't somehow mixed up those tubes in there. There's tubes everywhere. There's a complicated mess inside that thing, I'm telling you. You see, ever since I was a child, I've had this belief that I could accomplish things that were always just a little bit beyond my capability level at the time. Time and time again, I've bitten off way more than I could chew, and I've made some pretty crazy blunders in the process, believe me, but I persevere. I plug away, I learn from my mistakes, and I eventually succeed. And I believe that you can accomplish some pretty amazing things in life when you just have a little faith in yourself, doing something just a little bit bolder than what you think you're capable of doing. And that is the secret right there. You know, CCM Mustang 3-speed. Who remembers? Who had one of those bikes? Yeah. Man, I love that bike. Had the 3-speed stick shift and the crossbar, and the sissy bar and the big banana seat. And I'm on record pace. And I know that if I can just hang on, that I only have 4 hours left to go. All of a sudden, my chain falls off the front chain ring. I lose balance, lurch forward, careen off the road into a ditch, and land down an embankment upside down, and I'm completely trapped inside. Finally, I could hear the truck speeding down the track, and I could hear it getting closer and closer and closer, and then I could hear it getting farther and farther and farther away. They drove right behind me. I mean, how could they miss me? That was their only job. 10 minutes later, the steering bar snaps in two right in my hands. So, you know, I'm barreling down the track at 50 kilometers an hour with this useless piece of carbon fiber in my hands. Of course, the front wheel starts going into this speed wobble, and I knew what was going to happen. What resulted was this spectacular crash that had me skidding down the pavement at 50 kilometers an hour on my side. That was it. I had enough. We packed up and went home. I had failed. Former American Vice President Dan Quayle once said, "If we don't succeed, we run the risk of failure." I was going to let that one settle in. In the words of Thomas Edison, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And you know what? That is exactly how I look at my Alabama record attempt. I didn't fail. I succeeded in learning about what it's going to take to be the best in the world. If you're afraid to fail, you're never going to try anything, and you're never going to move closer to your goals. Most of us fear failure, and this is our greatest limiter in achieving what we've set out to accomplish. Have you ever wondered how it feels to break a world record? I went in on a Saturday morning and I spent the entire day producing this brochure. I used my black and white photocopier. I made 500 black and white photocopies. I hand-folded all of them and stuffed them into 500 envelopes. I licked 500 stamps. Have you ever wondered how it feels to lick 500 stamps? You know which picture's coming up. Human power is all about the pursuit of doing more with less, and it is a refreshing approach compared to our current attitude here in North America and many places of the world right now of always trying to accomplish more with more. Bigger cars, faster cars, more consumption, more, more, more. I was out to show the world the amazing distances a mere human being is capable of traveling under his own power. A University of Maryland research study found that early man used to walk the distance of a marathon each and every single day of his life. So that would be considered a natural environment for an animal called a human being, right? Now, would you believe that the average Canadian walks a mere 200 meters per day? It's completely out of line. Talk about biting off more than I could chew. I knew that the only way I would get close to Carter's record was to, number one, never, ever, ever stop pedaling. And this is exactly how I received my support handoffs for the entire 24 hours so that I never stop pedaling. And number two, never ease off on that intensity level. And that is exactly what I did. I crossed that start line at an intensity that was unthinkable, and I hung on for dear life. With a bit less than 20 minutes to spare, I actually surpassed Carter's 242-kilometer distance mark, and I had my second world record of 245.16 kilometers, a mere 3 kilometers over Carter's record, but I had done it. Your goal was absolutely spectacular. I couldn't believe it. You know, at that moment, I could have cared less about breaking Carter's record. And I knew that this was what it was all about. You know, the world and our lives are so full of amazing possibilities, and you know, most of us experience so little of it. When you step out there and you bite off more than you can chew, your boldness exposes you to this hidden magical part of life. And you know, this hidden magical part of you too. When your destination is bold, your journey will be absolutely epic. Trust me. Thank you very much.